She stood beside Egypt's most dangerous man. Then she was gone. In 1912, a German archaeologist named Ludwig Borchardt dug this face out of the Egyptian desert, and then he hid it. He listed it in his excavation records as gypsum, a cheap common material, worthless really. He wanted the Egyptian inspectors to wave it through without a second glance. It worked. The face was shipped to Berlin. Egypt wouldn't realize what had been taken for decades, because that face, that single painted limestone bust, is now the most reproduced image of any woman in the ancient world. It has been on magazine covers, claimed by nations, and fought over in courts for over 100 years. Her name was Nefertiti. She co-ruled the most powerful empire on earth. She stood at the center of the most radical religious revolution in ancient history. And in the 12th year of her husband's reign, she was gone. No body, no tomb, no explanation. Until now. Her name in ancient Egyptian means 4 words. The beautiful one has come. Not the beautiful one who came, as if her arrival was something the world had been waiting for. We don't know where she came from. That in itself should stop you, because in ancient Egypt, the great royal wife of the pharaoh had her lineage carved on every monument. Her family, her titles, her bloodline. Nefertiti's origins are blank. Some historians believe she was a foreign princess, possibly from Mitanni, a kingdom in modern-day Syria, sent to Egypt as a diplomatic bride. Others believe she was the daughter of Ai, one of Akhenaten's most trusted advisors. Others think she was Egyptian nobility whose records were later deliberately removed. Nobody knows where she came from. She simply appeared. But here is the first thing that should make you pay attention. In ancient Egyptian art, size equals power. The larger the figure, the more important. A pharaoh was always the biggest person in the frame. His wives stood smaller, his children smaller still. In the art of the Amarna period, the era Nefertiti and Akhenaten built together, she appears the same size as him. Not slightly smaller, the same. In over 3,000 years of Egyptian art, that was almost never done. And it gets more unusual. She's shown wearing the blue crown, the war crown, the crown a pharaoh wears when he leads armies into battle. She's shown smiting enemies, an act so exclusively associated with pharaohic power that depicting a woman doing it wasn't just unusual, it was a statement. Whatever Nefertiti was, she was not simply a wife. She and Akhenaten had 6 daughters together. We know their names, we have portraits of them, running, playing, sitting in their mother's lap. It is the most humanized portrayal of a royal family in all of ancient Egypt, which makes what happens next all the more impossible to understand. To understand what happened to Nefertiti, you first have to understand what she and Akhenaten were trying to build. Akhenaten didn't just change Egypt's religion, he abolished it. Thousands of years of gods, Amun, Ra, Osiris, Horus, Iris, gone. Replaced with a single deity, the Aten, the sun disk. And in this new religion, Akhenaten and Nefertiti were the only 2 people on earth who could communicate with the Aten directly. Every Egyptian who wanted to reach the divine had to go through them. That's not a theological shift, that's a monopoly on God. And Nefertiti wasn't a passive participant. She co-officiated every religious ceremony. She had her own temple at Amarna, the new capital Akhenaten built in the desert, where she performed rituals independently. Archaeological evidence suggests she may have had her own palace, her own staff, her own political apparatus. There are moments in the historical record where she appears to be making decisions alone, without Akhenaten beside her. Some Egyptologists have stopped using the word queen to describe her entirely. The word they use instead is co-regent, which means effectively co-ruler. And then year 12 arrives. It's the height of the Amarna period. The empire is at its peak. Delegations from 11 foreign nations arrive in the capital for a great ceremony of tribute. It is the most documented, most celebrated moment of Akhenaten's reign. Nefertiti is there, prominently. In the relief carvings of that ceremony, she is everywhere. And then year 13 begins, and she isn't. Year 13, no mention of Nefertiti. Year 14, silence. Year 16, nothing. For over 3,000 years, historians assumed she died. A plague swept through the ancient Near East during Akhenaten's reign. It appeared in the diplomatic records of the time, letters from foreign kings describing entire cities going dark. Some historians believe she was among its victims. Others believe she fell from power, that Akhenaten turned against her. There is evidence, in some places at Amarna, that her name and image were deliberately removed from reliefs. Not by later dynasties trying to erase the Amarna period. During it, a woman powerful enough to share the frame with the pharaoh, apparently powerful enough to make an enemy of one. But here is where the story does something that history rarely does. It turns around. Because in the same year that Nefertiti disappears from the record, a new name appears. A co-regent, a ruler, someone elevated to share the throne of Egypt. Their name? Neferneferuaten. Neferneferuaten, which means beautiful are the beauties of Aten, and one of Nefertiti's own royal titles, the one carved beneath her name on temple walls, was Neferneferuaten. Nefertiti didn't disappear. She changed her name. This is not a fringe theory. It is the position of some of the most respected Egyptologists alive today. Here is what they believe happened. Akhenaten's religious revolution was destroying Egypt. The old priesthoods were dismantled, temples shut. The economy, which ran through temple networks for centuries, was fracturing. Foreign allies were sending desperate letters that went unanswered. Egypt was in crisis. And Nefertiti, the woman who had stood beside Akhenaten through all of it, made a decision. She didn't disappear. She stepped forward. Under the name Neferneferuaten, she became co-regent. And when Akhenaten died, possibly around year 17, some scholars believed she briefly ruled Egypt alone as pharaoh. Not just as regent, as pharaoh. And here is the detail that will stay with you. The ruler Neferneferuaten began quietly, carefully reversing Akhenaten's revolution, reopening temples, allowing the old gods back in, laying the groundwork for the full restoration that Tutankhamun, her probable stepson, would complete. If this theory is correct, the woman who was erased from history was actually the one who saved it, the one who looked at the ruin her husband had made and chose to fix it, quietly, under a different name, without taking credit. And then the erasure caught up with her. When the priests of Amarna reclaimed Egypt under Tutankhamun and Horemheb, they didn't just destroy Akhenaten's memory, they destroyed everyone's memory. Nefertiti, Neferneferuaten, all of it chiseled away, as if she never existed. In 1898, archaeologists opened a cache tomb in the Valley of the Kings, KV 35, and found two unnamed mummies. One was an older woman, one was younger. Neither had a name. DNA analysis eventually confirmed the older woman was likely Queen Tiye, Akhenaten's mother. The younger woman was her relative, possibly a daughter of Amenhotep III. Her face was partially destroyed. Her left arm had been torn from its socket, possibly by ancient tomb robbers, possibly by someone who wanted her unrecognizable. Facial reconstruction using the proportions of the Nefertiti bust came back with a remarkable similarity. Nobody had been able to prove it is her. Nobody has been able to prove it isn't. In 2015, a British archaeologist named Nicholas Reeves made a claim that stopped the world. He had been studying high-resolution scans of Tutankhamun's tomb, KV62, and found something in the walls. Lines. Straight, deliberate lines beneath the plaster. The kind of lines that in ancient Egyptian construction indicated a sealed doorway, a hidden room. Reeves proposed that Tutankhamun's tomb was not built for Tutankhamun at all, that it was originally built for a female ruler, and that ruler was buried there first, and that Tutankhamun, who died young, unexpectedly, was simply placed in the outer chamber because there was no time to build him a proper tomb. The inner chamber, Reeves believed, still sealed, still untouched, was the burial chamber of Nefertiti. Egypt launched official investigations. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in. International teams ran the scans. The results were inconclusive. Some readings suggested a cavity, others didn't. The technology wasn't sensitive enough to be certain. The Egyptian government announced the search was suspended. And just like that, the door closed again. 3,000 years after she lived, we have her face. We have it so clearly that it was worth smuggling out of a country in 1912, worth fighting over in international courts for 100 years, worth reproducing millions of times on posters and covers and museum walls across the world. We have her face. We don't know where she was born. We don't know who her parents were. We don't know whether she died quietly, whether she was murdered, whether she ruled alone after her husband broke the world. We don't know where she is buried. The most recognized woman from the ancient world. And she is still somehow hidden. Nefertiti, the beautiful one has come. We're still looking for her. This is what the series keeps coming back to. Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Nefertiti, the Library of Alexandria. None of them were erased by accident. None of them were forgotten because nobody cared. They were removed deliberately, carefully, by people who understood exactly how much power a name carries, and who decided that some names were too dangerous to remember. The question that keeps me up, the one I think you should sit with, is this. If they almost erased Nefertiti completely, who else did they succeed with? If you haven't watched the Hatshepsut and Akhenaten videos yet, they're part of the same series, and together they tell a much larger story about who gets to decide what history remembers. Links are right here. And drop a comment. Tell me this, do you think Nefertiti is behind that wall? Because I genuinely don't know, and I think that's the most honest thing I can say about her.